All right, let's get started. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the 58th episode of HYSKY Monthly. We're joining you all today. Well, I'm in Houston. We're just a week off of 2 weeks off, I guess almost now, of Flying High, our second annual hydrogen aviation event that was in Las Vegas. And to all of you who joined us there, thanks so much for coming. We're getting ready to put out a big write-up on that, so that'll be exciting to talk about. But yeah, welcome to HYSKY Monthly, September 16th, 2024. I'm Danielle McLean, the founder and CEO of HYSKY Society. HYSKY is a 501c3 nonprofit. We're based in Houston, Texas, and we're dedicated to building communities to advance clean hydrogen science. And of course, we love hydrogen aviation. We're a group of expert scientists providing fun, sustainable science education to communities. Our objectives are workforce development to equip future professionals with hydrogen skills, community engagement to build positive community relationships, education to provide industry-leading courses and webinars, advocacy and awareness to advocate for your hydrogen solutions. You can download our company brochure at HYSKY.org. So let's take a minute and promote this on LinkedIn. So I will put a link in the chat, and all you need to do is click it. And once you click it, give it a like, just like I'm doing, and a repost. Spread more awareness for people to come in. Great. I see Tom has already done it. Yeah, you won't be able to copy the link, so just click it. Click it, give it a like, and a repost. So like I said, we just finished Flying High, which was September 3rd through 5th. It was a huge success. We, for the first time, were able to meet many of you in person. Here you see Rishav, Hayla, Angela, me, Jennifer. I'm not going to go through everybody's name. There's Mike. He's been involved from the beginning. This was our hydrogen aviation course. It was an 8-hour course. And then here's Mikkel Cardinal doing our keynote speak. He's from United Therapeutics, or Unither. We've got Ben Zion Lewison from Heaven Drones, Sky Risks, Matt Grigori, one from SoCal Gas. And it was just such a great group of people. I learned so much from every single presentation. I'm so excited for next year. And so just a quick shout out to our sponsors. Oh yeah, before I forget, like I mentioned earlier, we're getting ready to publish a huge write-up on Flying High and all of the things that we learned. So you'll want to stay tuned for that. And a huge shout out and thank you to HYSKY Aircraft. For over 80 years, HYSKY Aircraft Corporation has been a pioneer in the design, fabrication, and flight testing of experimental rotorcraft and unmanned air vehicles. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but they're also working on hydrogen helicopters, hydrogen-powered helicopters. Of course, I can't forget Vertical Flight Society. HYSKY spun out of Vertical Flight Society. Vertical Flight Society is the professional society dedicated to advancing vertical flight. And they held the world's first electric VTOL symposium in 2014 and just held the world's largest eVTOL event in January. I guess I need to update this because it wasn't just January. But yeah, if you're interested in vertical flight, consider joining VFS at VTOL.org/EAS. I think that's for the event. Also, huge shout out to Thurman Co. It's a women-owned project management company. HYSKY uses Thurman Co. and they add the personal touch to project management. So huge shout out to Angela Thurman at Thurman Co. And of course, SoCal Gas, their Southern California gas company, is the largest gas distribution utility in the US, serving millions in Central and Southern California. They have a lot more going on than just gas, including hydrogen infrastructure and all sorts of exciting R&D projects. I encourage you to check out some of those. All right, I have another action item for you. Please also go, as you know, I'm having you do all these things because HYSKY is a 501c3 nonprofit, and everything we offer that we're doing here, we're on our 58th webinar, and these are completely free to you all. So all we ask is that you share these, promote them. So I just put a link to our YouTube channel. So click it, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of these videos that we do every month are on there, plus much more. We've got a podcast, and it's growing and growing every month. So click that link and click that link. Yes, Mike, it does need a couple updates. I see your comment. Click that link and go subscribe to our YouTube channel. So if you're looking to market your organization, you can consider sponsoring one of these webinars. They sponsorships, I can't talk this morning. Sponsorships start at $1,200, and you get your logo on a webinar like this. And like I said, all of these go onto our YouTube and are forever on YouTube. So it's not a bad price to play. Yeah, I can't talk this morning. It's not a bad price to pay for getting your company's information out there into a targeted community. Big announcement. Less than a month away, we have our AIAA course. It's the Advanced Hydrogen Technologies and Design with let me just show you all this. And if you haven't registered for this, you definitely want to. So this is a 5-week course. It's 10 lectures, 20 total hours, every Tuesday and Thursday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time. It's Advanced Hydrogen Aerospace Technologies and Design online short course. I think I still have a little bit of COVID fog. I got COVID in Vegas. I don't think I gave it to anybody. I'm still recovering. But yeah, so you will earn a certificate. And I will encourage you to go look into this more on your own, but you'll have 4 hours on hydrogen and cryogenic fundamentals, 6 hours on hydrogen for fixed wing, 8 hours on hydrogen eVTOL design, and then 2 hours on infrastructure and airport. And let me show you some of the instructors. You are not going to want to miss this. We've got Anubhav Data, anybody that's been doing anything in the eVTOL space. If you haven't had the honor of taking one of his classes, you're in for a treat. You're definitely going to want to. Most of the stuff that I learned with hydrogen eVTOL was from Anubhav's work and research, his papers. So he's done a lot of work for NASA and the University of Maryland. So you're definitely going to want to be involved in that. And then Matt Moran is the managing member at Moran Innovations. He's a NASA retiree. He's the expert on cryogenics and storage. And then I will be teaching a little bit of it, and Rishav will be teaching a little bit. We haven't updated this, but we also have Gail Labrie teaching the infrastructure portion of it. And we're excited to soon announce the teacher of the fixed wing. So stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss that announcement. So again, just it's going to be everything that you need. Definitely a technical course geared towards engineers. So if you're really wanting to dig in more and get to more of the meat, make sure to sign up. It starts October 8th. It's all online. So yeah, take that course. I'm excited for that. All right. And with that, I am so excited to pass it over to Dr. Rishav Shrestha. We need to put that doctor in front of your name. Our co-founder and good friend who's actually here with me in Houston, sitting in the other room. I hope we don't get an echo. And I will mute and let you take it away.
Hey everyone. Thank you so much for joining in Flying High again. It's good to see everyone in person. Sorry, did I say Flying High? I might have some COVID fog as well, Danielle. Welcome everyone to HYSKY Monthly episode 58. We're very, very happy to see you all back again here. And before we go on with the presentation, let's do what we do all the time. We take a picture. I'm coming over to Danielle, so turn on your webcam and we'll take a big picture as always.
Yes, so this is the time everybody turn on your camera, and we're excited because this is the first time Rishav and I are going to be in the same camera. So normally Rishav is joining us from Nepal, but we have the honor to have him in the US for a few more days.
Can I come in?
Yeah, you got to get close.
All right.
Maybe if I scoot back.
No, I think.
No, you can.
All right.
There you go. We're going to do a couple.
All right.
Let me fix the view.
I will look like I might probably look like one of those old buggy games.
How do I fix the view so we can see everybody? This one. Okay, there we go.
All right.
All right, everybody say cheese. And if you haven't turned on your camera, turn it on. Here, you do it. Yeah.
Okay, where's the
Oh,
button?
wait, you disappeared. Scoot up.
And the window print, sorry. Is that window? Yeah.
Oh, you're in it. Okay, let's do a couple. Cheese.
To the other one. One more. All right. All right, I'm gonna scoot back.
Thanks for Shaw. All right, he's going back to the other camera.
All right, that was well, I hope it went well. All right, so thank you everyone. So up next we have an amazing personality on our webinar this time as well. So can we have the slides up? We have Michael Maher from TO Viridi. Michael's the chairperson, and he's going to be talking about the ethanol revolution, how it's transforming, and how it's going to transform the hydrogen infrastructure. And Michael is an amazing personality. He started out his career in the U.S. Navy in the nuclear power program, and then he had some devastating injury, unfortunately. So he went on to pursue private education at Oxford, Harvard, and so forth. And then he went on to become a special agent in the FBI, a construction manager, I think, for 5 years. He has done so many things during his time. And then he went on to discover how hydrogen-powered aviation would be promising um, through the involvement with advanced aviation projects while he was still at the US DOJ. And so he was then brought into a luxury charter aviation firm. Wow, that's another thing that he's done. And then following that, he worked with a number of hydrogen startups, and then he made his own resolve, said, I'm going to do this. And so he co-founded TO Viridi with his partner, Michael Lewison, who is also on this call today. And they are creating a hydrogen distribution network, which is capable of making hydrogen energy available for all users when and where is needed. TO Viridi is focusing its development right now in California, but they plan to expand to Oregon, Washington State, and Texas. So we would probably be seeing them here in Houston very soon, Danielle. And so TO Viridi's model places hydrogen generating plants using bioethanol, water, at multiple geographically distributed locations. Each plant produces green net negative hydrogen for generating electricity and hydrogen fuel. So this is based on ethanol, and I will let Michael to elaborate more. So welcome, Michael Maher and Michael Lewis.
We see your screen, but we don't hear anything if you're talking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, I'll try that again. Thank you guys so much for having me, Danielle and Rishabh, for the introduction and the opportunity to be able to present here. I've sat in the audience and listened to a lot of the incredible presenters that HYSKY has been able to bring, and to be able to share with you also my passion and love for hydrogen, and really where I see the future of our transportation industry and energy, not just in the United States, but globally. As was shared, my background was originally in nuclear power production with the US Navy. That went on into submarine service. Unfortunately, I was injured, got medically retired, but was involved in energy and continued to be through even digesters and some other projects throughout California, really doing methane capture for dairies and wastewater facilities, and how we really protect our environment and maintain our environment in a responsible way has always been something that's been close really to my heart. And to see the advancements in manufacturing, in polymers and technology to bring us to where we are to make hydrogen a reality for infrastructure, I'm excited to have the technology that we're bringing throughout the United States and hopefully globally, really to the mainstream. So to kind of go back, what is TO Viridi, why the company, and what that name is? I was involved in business aviation, and also my time in the Bureau with the FBI was involved in a lot of different projects that were going on and on the national security side. Some really inspiring things that were in the aviation space and other technologies. How we're able to power projects and really our infrastructure. But if you go all the way back to the very first map, and this gets into aviation, this gets into navigation, this gets into the ability to really develop our nation and our planet. If you look at just the logo, it probably should bring you memories of the original TO maps or OT maps, which was terrarium, orbis, orbis, terrarium. And my aviation company was OTN, orbis, terrarium, and navigentium, to navigate really the world. And TO Viridi, terrarium, orbis, Viridi is it's the green planet, and to have it be TO Viridi, we're moving towards green. So it's a play on a lot of things with a rich history and background. And as we navigate really the energy markets, we are navigating a lot on how we deal with this transition that we're really moving on and trying to accomplish globally. The hydrogen space, and really in the aviation space, is what moved me over. I was really excited actually about electric flight. From running major corporate jets, the company I was a CEO of had offices globally all around the world, in Asia, in Europe, and the United States. And burning Jet A was something that was always a concern as far as how it impacts our climate. But one interesting point that isn't talked about a lot is the advancements that we see in most of our fuel and energy comes from, and cutting edge wise, is from business aviation. And that was the case back, if you go back to another way of travel, a long time ago, to sailing. The advancements in sailing happened because of racing. You look at the America's Cup and the technology that came out of ocean sailing that came into to really support the general public. What we see now with the new racing in sailing with the America's Cup is the same thing. It's technology that's now benefiting the rest of industry. So in private aviation, the new way of travel, you see sustainable aviation fuel corporations and businesses that are really focusing on that. The next transition was going to be electric. Corporate jet investor has a group called Revolution Aero. And in that, we looked at a lot of eVTOL opportunities. But the same thing, what is the big thing for aviation? Is weight. And transporting batteries is extremely challenging. And we were able to see a new technology with hydrogen fuel cells, something that actually is different than the combustion of hydrogen that the NASA looked at in the 80s and was doing some designs. But we all know what it does to metal and brittling. And so there's a lot of challenges that have happened. And frankly have been mitigated. The main point of the conversation today is infrastructure. How do you get to that infrastructure point? After I left the Department of Justice with the FBI, I went into aviation, and from aviation moved into advanced fuels. And looking at that space, I've traveled the world. I was in recently Germany and Austria looking at different technologies. I helped a couple other companies, one company here in California, advance on gasification and turning wood waste into hydrogen fuel. But again, the challenge is, how do you get the fuel and the distribution? And that's what I love really about our technology. Is we're taking bioethanol, and we're not transporting hydrogen, we're transporting ethanol. And so you have hydrogen molecules in ethanol. When you combine them with water, it's the easiest way to look at this. If you drive down the highway and you see a semi-truck that's full of petrol or gasoline going to be delivered, the capacity of hydrogen, if you put liquid hydrogen cryogenically in that tanker truck, the density that we're able to have of hydrogen molecules in ethanol plus water is actually greater than transporting hydrogen in that cryogenic state in liquid hydrogen. And we all know the challenges associated with that. So this is really fun. Using a thermocatalytic process, we're able to transport ethanol directly to sites and facilities, convert on-site hydrogen for use, either running it through a fuel cell to provide electricity right back to the grid or to that infrastructure, and also at the same time with excess be able to use hydrogen to support, frankly, the rest of the technology as it develops. In the aviation space, in even injection with some of the other projects that are going on with the Department of Energy or other energy companies re-injecting hydrogen back into the natural gas network. But really getting into what our purpose and design is, it's the chicken and the egg, being able to have a solution to both. How do you adopt hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles if we don't have a robust network? How do we have hydrogen for aviation flight if we're not having that network? And how do we have hydrogen if we're not, how do we have hydrogen? So I'm seeing some of the comments that are coming up. How do we have hydrogen if it's actually not being produced in a green and a really sustainable manner? If we're just going through formulas and chasing credits to convert from one form of energy to the next form of energy just to get there. That's what I really like. Being in California, right in the heart of the state, this fifth largest city in the state of California is called the city of Fresno. It's pretty much right in the center of the Central Valley, and it is a perfect distance from San Francisco and Los Angeles. And so in the aviation space, it's great as far as flying and doing test runs. And I really see the future of our infrastructure developing, and it has to be able to develop here in the Central Valley of California. You have hydrogen production and available in the Bay Area, some in Los Angeles, but to be able for really trucking that moves everything throughout the state of California and from the California to the ports or out to the rest of the United States. Those commodities, and a lot of those commodities come out of the Central Valley, and we do not have a hydrogen really readily available that is green. And so that is one of the challenges that we're looking at tackling here, also at the port, and building that initial backbone. I know most of the people on this call already have expertise in hydrogen, have paid a lot of attention to this space. I also have my business partner and founder, Michael Lewison, on the call. I think we'll be able to go through some of these slides and the decks. And I want to open it up, honestly, to questions and answers, and not just speak at everyone for the next hour. So why don't we go ahead and start with some of the slides, Michael?
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's good to see some new friends who we've met a week or so ago, and some, hopefully make some more friends. Let me. Okay. My arrow button doesn't want to work. So we're a developer of hydrogen technology. We work with a bunch of partners, including our finance partner, Brown Energy, a technology partner, our engineering groups. And you might see the greenhouse specialist. That goes back to our source of bioenergy. So what is ethanol? Everybody kind of has heard the term, or definitely has heard the term, but the molecular formula is C2H6O, sometimes called CH3CH2OH. And that's a picture of my little friend, because when you're dealing with drinking alcohol, you actually have the opportunity to get a lot of toys. So where does it come from? So it's, as we said, it's a biogas. It's produced in great abundance. It comes from, most often in this country, currently, it comes from corn. Globally, sugar is a major component, and essentially we're taking the sugar out of the biomass. So Mike referred to some other sources of hydrogen that are somewhat comparable, but essentially we're working with the sugar component. We added the switchgrass in there. There's been a lot of work done in switchgrass. It is an extraordinary plant that can be used to grow and produce a tremendous amount of ethanol. There's a lot of benefits to switchgrass. It's cheap to grow. It's low in water consumption. It grows virtually anywhere. So being here in Central California, we have land that you would look at and say, oh my gosh, the most fertile land in the world. And you would be correct. And you can go 20 miles north or south and you'll see a lot of open, more grazing type, drier land. And you might say, well, that's really not where you grow something. The good news is you can grow switchgrass there. And not only does it consume a lot less water, but once it starts decaying in its life cycle, once you clip the plant, the biomass from the decay actually regenerates the soil. So it's a really great material. There are a few challenges in using it for ethanol, mostly deriving from the fact that ethanol plants today were built to use corn. So the logistics of bringing the plant to the mill, to the distillery, don't match up exactly parallelly with switchgrass. So as we look at the future, we'll be looking at opportunities to work on new facility design that will actually be built to accommodate switchgrass, and then the price points will match and the energy efficiency will be even greater. As we said, ethanol is something you see every day, whether you clean your hands, and I don't know, Danielle, just getting over the virus. Certainly, we all have some experience with hand sanitizer. Ethanol consumption went up quite a bunch during the pandemic because everybody was using a lot of hand sanitizer. But obviously, every bottle of alcohol on a bar shelf, home or at the local restaurant, you're going to see the same thing. We actually use it in a very high concentration, so we are closer to moonshine than what you're ordinarily going to drink. Also, ethanol is a fuel, and it is the third most abundantly produced fuel in the United States after gasoline and diesel. That amounts to roughly 44 million gallons a day, between 10.5 and 11 million barrels of ethanol produced daily. I was talking about the current industry. We actually have an underutilization of that industry. There's a mechanical capacity currently for about 50 million gallons for daily production. And to increase from there would only require a little bit more growth, because obviously you have to have the feedstock. So actually current capacity with additional growth would be close to 60 million barrels per day. And that'll become abundantly clear why that's important. But I will make one additional point on that right now. Ethanol is the only major component fuel source material in the United States that has a very dramatic decrease in projected utilization. And by only, I would say also gasoline and diesel. So it's not the only. The reason for that is we are increasing the amount of non-purely gasoline-powered and diesel-powered vehicles on our road. And as we do that, the consumption of ethanol actually decreases. So the industry it has a concern going forward, and they are looking for other opportunities in their business to use the ethanol that they produce, because they recognize that the amount of ethanol used in gasoline over the next 10 years is expected to decrease by 25%. So we're often asked, is there going to be enough ethanol? That's a long way of saying yes, there will be, because there's plenty now and there will be plenty available to us in the future. The ethanol that's in current use is an octane booster in the fuel and an oxygenator. It was brought in to replace MTB, which had some catastrophic environmental concerns. So that's why the ethanol industry came about. As Mike said, we went looking for solutions that had good infrastructure so that we didn't have to try to recreate an infrastructure that this country depends on and the world depends on. And let's be honest, our gasoline and diesel infrastructure was developed and built over more than a century. And the ability to replace it in 5 years is not an easy task. And we felt and are convinced that using an existing inventory, an existing infrastructure that's available for use today and leveraging it to bring hydrogen to all corners of our country and the globe would make the most sense. So this basically shows you the amount of ethanol production and current heavy distribution markets, and it literally moves to every state in the country already. Most of your ethanol in bulk is moved in rail or barge and ship. Obviously, some of it is moved locally in transport, other transport like vehicles. But there is an incredibly large infrastructure, not just in transportation and distribution, but in storage. And as we move into other areas and other sectors in the economy and repurpose existing infrastructure rather than building new, we can start to migrate some of the fuel infrastructure into an ethanol infrastructure to add to what's already existent. But to give you an example, in Southern California, in the direction of the El Segundo Chevron refinery and the other refinery that's there is a unit train or 110 cars of almost 30,000 gallons of ethanol moving into that market every day, just there. Okay, so now a little talk about CI scores. So ethanol CI scores for the production of ethanol are currently as low as 5 to 10. With switchgrass technology, we expect to take it even lower. Now, to be completely honest and clear, the actual current average for ethanol CI scores is in the 30 to 40 range. Some of it's a little higher, but all the ethanol biodistilleries are moving towards carbon capture. And there are two streams of carbon that come out of ethanol production. One is good and one is bad. The good is biogenic, and every part of the ethanol development chain, design and production chain, takes captured carbon from the atmosphere because it starts with a photosynthetic process and contains that within the ethanol molecule. So we like to say the more energy we make, the more carbon we actually remove from the atmosphere. I know a lot of conversation is about limiting the amount of carbon going into the atmosphere, but in the production of ethanol, we're actually removing, sequestering, and repurposing biogenic carbon for other uses and removing it from the atmosphere. The bad carbon is from the natural gas burn in producing the ethanol. A lot of that is, as I said, now being sequestered. And the important thing to consider always in these conversations is net life cycle CI score or carbon emissions. And with our process, we actually have a negative 66.7 CI score, so 67 round numbers. So when you match that up against even the highest ethanol production numbers, we're still net negative, which is why Michael used the term earlier that we were actually a net negative hydrogen process. This is just a little comparison. We have a lot of conversations. Again, we're here in the Central Valley of California, which is known as the food origin or breadbasket of the United States. There's just a tremendous amount of growth here. There's a lot of movement and discussion to put a lot of solar power in this valley. On paper, it looks really good for a lot of folks. We have very good solar footprint here as far as the coefficient of building solar energy here. The trouble is that for the people who live here, and honestly, in these farming belts, a lot of those people, these indigenous populations, local populations, are of the more economically challenged variety. We have some of the poorest communities in the country here. And putting solar panels in those spaces, while good business for some and good economy for jobs to put them in, shortly thereafter, you leave a landscape that's basically stealing glass with a lot of other potential problems. And this slide basically shows that in the production of 1 ton of hydrogen, and this is just the solar, it's not even accurate by scale, but we're running 1 ton of hydrogen out of a ship container, as opposed to acres upon acres of solar panels. The actual number for solar and electricity storage, if you want to produce 1 ton of hydrogen on a 24/7 basis, is about 75 acres, as opposed to the footprint of 1 container. So we've talked about the technology. Basically, Michael said it's a thermocatalytic reaction. We're recycling through the process the ethanol and some water. It's really a high-proof vodka, if you will. And through that process, we're able to isolate the hydrogen and have it recombine into a hydrogen molecule. Michael also alluded to the fact of our transportation efficiency. So this is basically a model of 3 similar vehicles carrying hydrogen in different form. Obviously, we all know about gaseous hydrogen. That would be a tube truck. We didn't display it as such, but and right these days in standard, you're going to get about up to 700 kilograms. There are even technologies now to get those last kilograms out. So in a cascading fill and exfill, we actually have technologies now that we can actually move the entire or nearly the entire 700, whereas just a few years ago, we were looking at 700 in, but really only be able to get 550 or so out. A lot of liquid hydrogen is moving around. There are cases that we know of where liquid hydrogen is being moved in tremendous volume to steel mills because it's the only way to move it with current technology. It's very expensive. I think everybody on this call is pretty familiar with what the added costs of moving liquid hydrogen are and what the complexities are. You're obviously moving in a cryogenic form. In the same footprint, you're good for about 3,500 kilograms. In the same footprint, in our process, combining ethanol with water on site, we're moving an available hydrogen molecule mass of between 7,000 and 9,000 kilograms. And the reason why we use the 7 to 9,000, because obviously it's a footprint there. But if you think about over-the-road traffic, you can actually, and many of you, I'm sure, have seen gasoline or other fuel trucks moving in tandem. So the largest of your single volume trailers, container trailers, are going to move about between 8,500 and 9,000 gallons. You can actually get larger if you go to a tandem and run 255. So you can get to about 11,000. That's not something that anybody is doing in liquid or gaseous hydrogen. So it's not just about the ability to get more into the same footprint. It's about the ability to access even larger footprints as we move the material down the road and actually deploy the hydrogen to a local space. Obviously, everybody recognizes that you can bring any one of these trucks right to the point of use. So that could be a logistics facility with 50 or 150 fuel cell vehicles, Class 8, or even cars. That could be at an industrial plant. It could be at a port. And another interesting thing, which I don't have a slide on, but in solar power and in solar powered hydrogen production, you're going to end up putting somewhere between 49 and 50, maybe as low as 48 kilowatts of energy in to yield a kilogram of hydrogen. We already have that energy built into the molecule, so we're adding no electricity into the process except for a minor operational run pumps and things like that. So when you now have hydrogen and you want to take electricity out using the hydrogen as the storage of energy, in the case of solar powered electrolysis. You've put 50 in, you've banked that. And as we all know from fuel cells, we're going to yield out with modern solid oxide fuel cells, maybe as much as 62%, so about 20 kilowatts, and that's on the upside. So the 50 in, 20 out is a model that, as we used to say in business, will make it up in the volume to kind of overlook a loss in every transaction. It's difficult math. In our case, we can survive on that 20 out, even 18 out for applications, and we're looking at applications right now in design for current customers to actually produce electricity from the ethanol generated hydrogen in an economic fashion. This is a slide basically talking about our efficiency. I put it in because I was asked a question at HYSKY, so we put together the research. For every kilogram of hydrogen we're putting in 1.8 US gallons of ethanol. From that ethanol, we're yielding in the process about 0.7, it's 0.6999, so 0.7 kilograms of hydrogen for about a little in excess of 99% efficiency of the hydrogen that was put in. The water that we add, which recirculates through the process, essentially we're taking out of that water every 0.7 gallons, about 3.3 kilograms of hydrogen. And from that, we're yielding a 42% efficiency on the hydrogen coming out of the water. So in total, if we look at the ethanol that we're moving and the ethanol that we're running through the system, the amount of hydrogen molecule that we yield out of that ethanol amounts to about 141% of the ethanol input. So we said that we don't use any outside electricity. That is true. We actually use about just under a half a megawatt per day, and we do run these systems consistently. So this is not a 1 ton capacity, or actually a 1.25 ton capacity. It's a system that delivers that. When we talk about being able to produce about a megawatt of power every hour, that's not maybe this hour, but not that hour. And maybe we'll produce 52 kilograms of hydrogen this hour, but not at 2 o'clock in the morning. We run consistently 24/7. So on that basis, we're consuming about a half a megawatt of electricity, which we can absolutely repurpose out of the hydrogen that we use. There are cases where grid power is available and inexpensive, where we could use that just to keep more hydrogen flowing into the hydrogen economy rather than consuming it for our electricity use. We've gone pretty extensively that we use existing infrastructure to move and to store our feedstock product. And our footprint is very small. We're producing a ton in under 2 TEUs. So in a 40-foot container, we're producing about 1,250 kilograms of hydrogen plus support equipment. We talked about atmospheric carbon reduction, and we've talked about our ability to produce electricity at a positive economic equation. So we really believe that this is the best solution for moving hydrogen into the economy today, not having to move it great distances as hydrogen molecule, but to make it available, as we say, when and where you need it. So those of you who are at HYSKY, this is just a refresh of looking at it from an aviation perspective.
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but I think you mean at Flying High.
I'm sorry, at Flying High featuring HYSKY.
Yes, it's okay.
At Flying High featuring HYSKY.
At Flying High by HYSKY.
By HYSKY. There we go. We're all a little jealous for the name. So thanks, Danielle. So as I presented at that conference, we all see hydrogen as a really good pathway for aviation. There's a lot of power. Michael talked about how carrying around batteries kind of tries to overcome one of the first laws of flight, which is don't land with as much weight as you took off with. Obviously, a fuel that you're going to consume wins on that equation, whereas batteries do not. But there are challenges, as we all know. Transporting hydrogen is very complex. Getting it to airports is difficult. The existing infrastructure that's there does not match up with hydrogen very well. It's really built for a liquid type fuel. non-cryogenic liquid, so Jet A and diesel for ground support. So we would need to put in a lot of new investment to use hydrogen typically. We would want to produce it on site as best we could. That would reduce on site and on demand, so that we would reduce the need to store a lot of hydrogen and eliminate transportation. And then, of course, the question is, how can we use existing infrastructure? As I said earlier, the ability to produce hydrogen on a consistent basis rather than just when electricity was available from solar or wind, from intermittent sources, would require a significant amount of energy storage or electricity energy storage. So adding that to the production capacity, pretty typical numbers, and obviously in very sunny areas or very windy areas, there's going to be a lower number. In other areas, it's going to be a higher number. But across the planet, 75 acres is a pretty good analysis. And that brings in the question, where are you going to produce this, or where are you going to get this 75 acres to do it? At our largest airports, we really don't have the ability to do that anywhere nearby. This is Atlanta Hartsfield. It's the largest airport in the United States by traffic, also one of the largest by land. It's about 4,700 acres. If you look at the surrounding communities, and I could go bigger, you're going to get more of the same. There's just really not a lot of place to put a lot of intermittent energy production, which means that you're going to move something from offsite to onsite at great distances, whether that be electricity, which would require new infrastructure to move that power in, or hydrogen, which would require difficult hydrogen infrastructure to move the hydrogen around. This is Heathrow. Pretty similar problem. Yes, it does have some ponds nearby, so I guess we could put floating solar panels, but similar problem. And if you go out more and more into the London surrounds, you're not going to find any good acreage to drop in these kind of numbers. Interestingly enough, we did a little research on the amount of energy that would be required to run either of these airports. And essentially, it's pretty similar to the footprint of the airport itself. So give or take, obviously in London, it would take more because the solar coefficients are not as good. But give or take, you're talking about that same 4,000 to 5,000 acre number to produce enough hydrogen to power these airports, their systems, and potentially future the aviation as well. So there is an airport we found that has plenty of room around it. To put in vast arrays of solar power, actually has pretty good wind coefficient, although I think the FAA doesn't really want you to put wind towers too close to airports. Haven't really thought too much about the direction of solar panels and the approaching traffic and what that glare would look like, but Denver does have plenty of land around it, and they actually own the land. It's a 33,500 acre footprint. So they could put a lot of solar in and generate hydrogen from that. So potentially that's an airport where traditional electrolysis could be a solution. Except at Denver, there's one other little problem, and that is when you have 2 feet of snow on the solar panels, they don't work real well. So this is a problem that Denver experiences on a fairly regular basis for at least half the year. So this is our solution. A little bit of AI, a little fun, but basically our vision is the ability to produce the hydrogen directly at the terminal, potentially even at the gate. Certainly today we could produce enough hydrogen for use at a given terminal leg for all use at that terminal for ground support equipment. Very little aviation use currently, but that's increasing. Some of our friends are bringing in some really good hydrogen aviation technology. So literally right at or underneath the terminal building, we could bring the ethanol in. We could use existing aircraft support systems and fuel storage on site with a little bit of repurposing and reconditioning, and store ethanol in them, and then start moving that fuel right to those terminals, and then we would convert it to hydrogen on an on-site as needed basis. And that's basically it. Cheers, everyone. Cheers to ethanol.
So as Michael just shared kind of really through the deck on the aviation side, one of the benefits, and I saw one question was about methanol versus ethanol. I think this answered some of the methanol challenges. We're taking a pragmatic approach to being able to provide and consist on existing infrastructure to provide hydrogen to the consumer now. There is other technologies as far as that transition going forward, but right now, this solution, the difference, many of you probably know, methanol versus ethanol. You have significant safety and toxicity issues between methanol and ethanol. You have how it is produced out of, if it's steam reformation from natural gas. We're taking ethanol, which is an existing product that is being produced, that has already been in the marketplace, that we know how to move, we know how to transport, and we're leveraging that and continuing to have that be produced and now provide that hydrogen for not only in aviation, but really Class 8 trucking and hopefully for the consumer vehicles. Looking just at the airport, which I was my initial focus, hydrogen now for aviation, electrical power that will be able to provide electricity for the airport. But how do you get the public to engage and adopt? Everyone knows Ubers and the taxis that come into the airports. If you're able to have hydrogen produced right there on site, look at a lot of the OEM manufacturers that produce fuel cell electric vehicles. They're offering major incentives. So you could have a city, just like they did in Europe and Germany, where they had over 1 million miles on fuel cell electric vehicles in the taxi fleet, and they converted a city to run on just hydrogen-powered taxis. Having and working with local governments to incentivize really a sustainable airport or a green airport that's going to have electric vehicles and fuel cell electric vehicles there. You're not going to have that anxiety, the range anxiety. You're going to have the ability for them to do transport. And for an Uber driver, how great. I get to buy a fuel cell electric vehicle. The manufacturers give me enough credits to be able to buy fuel for 3 years. And you're really adopting. And then you're also exposing travelers to hydrogen. And then you're able to do even the short eVTOL flights in hydrogen. Those are things going forward. But the question is, why ethanol versus methanol? It's here, it's now. We're able to do this. And we're looking forward to having some of these in place and going in 2025. That's the exciting.
If I can add to the methanol versus ethanol discussion. So a couple of quick points. Ethanol, vodka. I'm not going to drink at 9:30 in the morning, but I could polish this down and no harm done. I'm not going to do that with methanol. But also, we need to look at that in the light of what the narrative is in the public and how quickly we're going to get the public to work with us to adopt these technologies. Methanol has some challenges from a safety profile. I think the methanol systems that are out there are great systems. They actually have some advantages over our technology. They can turn them on and turn them off. So if you have a place that just needs hydrogen for backup power, it's a really good solution where we run and we run consistently. The other thing about methanol is that we have to look at the growth of the industry and how we want to have enough hydrogen available when demand starts growing quite significantly. And as I pointed out earlier, we not only have a tremendous amount of ethanol in this country, but the availability of that ethanol is going to be increasing as the demand on it lessens. Currently, projections for biomethanol by the end of this decade are quantities that will equal about 8% of the current availability of bioethanol. So it really, without a tremendous increase in the amount of methanol that's not even projected, it's going to have challenges being a large factor in a changeover to a hydrogen economy.
Thanks
One
so
of the questions
much.
that came up.
It was a fantastic presentation. I just want to jump in. There are a lot of questions coming in, so I figured we can start. I don't know if you guys can hear me. My computer seems to have frozen. Can you hear me?
I can
Yes.
hear you.
Okay, I froze for a second. There's a lot of questions coming in, so let's just go through and let some people, I want to be able to get to them. Scene Patty says, Scene, do you want to come on and talk about Hondo? Or it's not a question, it's a comment, but it was the first one. Actually, it wasn't, it was the second one. So let me go back to Tom Wagner. Well, I think we talked about that, ethanol over methanol. I suspect we'll come back to that question. So yeah, Scene, if you want to come on and talk about Hondo, you're more than welcome to. I'm also happy to facilitate a conversation with you and TO Viridi. Lots of opportunity there. So that could be an awesome, feel free to interrupt me and jump in
Yeah.
Scene, if you're there.
And-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you,
And please,
Danielle.
and please, anybody, if you don't, we don't get to your question, either go to Danielle or there's my email address. I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you, Danielle. I'll be real brief. Hondo, Texas, we're west of San Antonio. We have 2,400 acres out here, the largest general aviation airport in South Texas. We also have a rail system, a short line rail south of the airport. And we do have an ethanol terminal and transloading. So, you know, Danielle has actually visited our location, our site. You know, we have everything you need except for a lot of commercial traffic, but we have a lot of space. So,
Yeah, that's great. And it's interesting you talk about the proximity of the ethanol. So we have a metric that we kind of work with internally, and we talk about miles per ton of hydrogen delivered or moved. We're looking at a plant in the central part of the country, actually right adjacent to where Biotech has their first facility with methanol. In Wentzville, Missouri. And obviously from there, we look at quite a distance potentially to current hydrogen use, where we have sites that we're designing right now in Long Beach. And, you know, that hydrogen might move as few as 5 to 10 miles. And then we actually are working on a site right now at an ethanol plant to help reduce their CI score by cogening some produced hydrogen into their natural gas burn and reducing the amount of natural gas burn. So actually reducing the carbon in easier than reducing the carbon out. And in that case, we're actually moving the ethanol 0 miles and moving the hydrogen 0 miles. So yeah, we're always looking for opportunities to be in closer proximity. And there is a lot of hydrogen opportunity in Texas. And I think as we all recognize. So we'd love to follow up with you.
Awesome.
Mike,
And Sean, to follow up, you might not have transportation needs, but that's the great thing about our system. We will just convert and be able to provide electricity until that time, the hydrogen infrastructure and the use is there. So it's not going to be a one only option. That's what I love about the technology and why I chose to get my company involved in this.
we do have a lot of land for solar farm and lots of sunny, good weather days here.
Yeah. Like I said, lots of opportunity there. Okay, next up is Christopher Hedrick. I hope I'm saying your last name correctly if you're still here. I think it's a great question that we all want to know the answer to.
So our model is not to sell our technology. We're in the energy business. So our model is to sell hydrogen and electricity. In all honesty, the electricity is not as valuable a commodity to us in current electrical prices. Where Michael and I live, notwithstanding, we actually have one of the most expensive electricity markets in the country. So it's actually a good market to make electricity. But most markets, it's a little tighter on the margin. But basically, our model is to sell hydrogen fuel into the marketplace at market rates. A lot of the offtakes that we're discussing for projects that we're working on are wholesale. So I think everybody here pretty much has a good feel for what those numbers are.
Awesome. On the next question, Michael, if you don't mind, we like to let the person asking the question unmute their mic and camera, and then they'll just restate it. So don't worry about reading the questions. We'll handle that. Okay, Daniel, I hope I don't butcher your last name. Mascaritolo. I'm so sorry about that. Please tell me how to say your last name. Daniel, if you're
Muscaritolo.
here, yes,
Yeah,
please say your last name for me.
Muscaritolo.
Oh, okay. It took me 3 times. I got it. Go ahead.
Yeah, my team, which includes Tom Wagner, who's on here, we're doing quite a bit of work with making methanol from wood waste and then taking it and putting it in a reforming process to make hydrogen. And part of the issue is that, as you know, regular methanol is 12.5% hydrogen by weight, and we put it through this proprietary reforming process. It comes out to be 18.85% hydrogen. I want to know in comparison what your numbers look like.
I can't tell you everything because some of it's proprietary. But as I demonstrated earlier, and what I can tell you is that we are using water in the process, and we are increasing the yield of hydrogen out. So if I told you how much, I mean, essentially, we're getting a kilogram of hydrogen out of 1.8 gallons of. If you do the math, there's not that much hydrogen in there, and the rest of it is being sourced from the water that's going through the system.
Okay, so I guess I'm assuming that the green materials you're using some type of process to bacteria and other things to generate.
So it's a thermocatalytic process. I'm not going to go into what's in the catalytic membrane and exactly how that's working. It's pretty similar to the process that most methanol reformers are using. I will tell you that we're running at a little bit of a higher temperature and more recycling of the reaction, if you will, and that's why we have a more difficult time in starting and stopping than you probably do in your methanol process.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. Well, good. Let's hope everything grows. Definitely having a hydrogen carrier that you reform into hydrogen is the answer, whether it's ethanol or methanol. Let's see what the future holds.
Hey, you guys got Bill Gates.
Thanks, Daniel. Sorry about the last name. Next up, we have Jeffrey Harrison. Jeffrey, great question you're asking. Jeffrey, if you're here, please unmute and ask your question. Otherwise, yes, go ahead.
I'm just filling in for one of my colleagues. I was just interested in the process. It's a very interesting process and something similar that we are working on. So we should follow up after this call for sure. I was just interested what happens to the CO2 that is produced from the reforming process of the ethanol.
Absolutely. So the CO2 that is produced at the end is it's very high quality CO2, and it can be sold and used in medical space or any industry that would want to use it. And frankly, there's a lot of people that want to offtake and use the CO2 that is being captured.
Okay.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to that part where I was talking about the CO2 outputs from the ethanol process, that there are two. So this is what continues on in the ethanol molecule is the good CO2 or the biogenic CO2. So that has tremendous usability in food service, food packaging. Obviously, carbonated beverages is the one everybody will think of. Beer distribution, alcohol distribution, medical systems. They actually use it to cleanse the carbon fiber that goes into make our hydrogen tanks because it's the same atomic material, so it doesn't contaminate. So Mike and I had a conversation with an attorney at one point, and the suggestion was made, well, you could sequester your carbon dioxide and put it down oil wells, and they'll pay you $50 or $40 a ton, or maybe it was 25. And we said, that's kind of like feeding filet mignon to the dog because it's worth about $300 a ton. So.
Okay. And one last question. Could you go over the life cycle, just because I'm trying to understand how the CI goes negative? Sequestration.
That's one we can follow up with you, and our scientific team can coordinate with you. Basically, what you're talking, it's It's pretty similar to how any biogenic process that's capturing carbon from the atmosphere as opposed to from the ground. So when you look at a CI score for a fossil fuel, obviously you're lifting it from the ground and introducing it into the above ground environment. In our process or in any agricultural growth process, you're removing carbon from the atmosphere as part of photosynthesis. But we're happy to follow up with you on that.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, Jeffrey. Next up is Jim Jung. Good to see you here. Jim, would you like to come on? It looks maybe like you had more of a comment, but we appreciate and welcome comments as well. This is how we build, and I'm lost video. I don't know why it's not letting me turn my camera back on. But Jim, if you're still here, we would love to hear from you. Jim Jung. Okay, we'll move on to Mike Hirschberg. Mike, you have a great question. I was wondering the same.
Yeah, just a basic question. You have a lot of logos and things like that, and I don't know if you explained this before, but you talk about HyEn and HyEn Plus. I don't know if they're the same thing, but what is that?
HyEn.
I
HyEn,
skipped over that. I apologize. It's on my shirt. So that's our brand name. That's the name that our fuel will sell under, and the name that our technology is deployed under.
Hydrogen energy. So, but
Michael came up with that one. So,
but it's and I saw one time it didn't have the plus, but you always use a plus, or are they different things?
Yeah, as a brand name, we use the plus. Hydrogen energy plus. It's a little bit better than without the plus.
And I think a second or third chart, you had all the different logos of your different.
Yeah,
I think they're partners. Can you go back to that chart?
Yeah. So we are the project developer. Brown is our finance partner. SBI Golu Technologies is our technology partner, and we are the exclusive commercialization partner for them. ONIC and Flexible are our engineering firms. If anybody wants to talk about Flexible offline, it's actually they have a very interesting technology to store energy. So if anybody runs into that challenge, it's very large energy storage systems that are not battery. Mercer Consulting, I said, that kind of goes back to our agricultural roots and the repurposing of our biogenic CO2. Ultimately, what we're working on in design is a closed loop system. I won't tell you that we're there yet, but we're looking at a closed loop system where basically we would produce our own agricultural product to make our own ethanol, to produce our own hydrogen, and then repurpose the CO2 back into the feedstock.
Cool. All right. Great. Thanks so much.
Hey, Danielle, this is Jim Jung. I'm sorry.
Hi, Jim.
I didn't unmute quick enough. So just real quick, thanks for this fabulous presentation. Just a real quick update. We're happy to work with anyone working with any hydrocarbon type situations. We have 3 places that have now been offered us to build a full-scale demo. One actually has a lot of CO2 tank storage and alcohol production. It's in the southeast corner of southern Indiana on the Ohio River. It's where the old Seagram's plants were and still operate under a different name. I grew up there. We're active in Texoma, in South Dallas Inland Port. Without going into too much detail, we're highly in the middle of them moving to an Engine 2 status. And there's a major university in Michigan that's looking for the transportation part of our stuff, but they want to be totally renewable in the energy situation. So we can bring that in any hydrocarbon forms, including hydrogen or hydrogen in any mix with, in hydrocarbons. So that's it for me. But you guys are great. Appreciate this group, Danielle. You're the best.
Yeah, Jim, please shoot us a note. We'd love to hear more about what you got going on.
I will do that. And my name on LinkedIn is Jim M. Jung. I'm pretty available to anyone that wants to link into. And the send info, whatever comments. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, Jim. I also put my LinkedIn on there and have some great relationships also in Michigan. So I'd love to connect.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for the kind words. I think we actually met, or no, I'd learned about you in Oklahoma. Very cool project that you're working on. So yeah, I highly recommend you.
Remember, I presented at Grand Forks.
Oh, of course, I wouldn't
Hydrogen
forget that.
Superhighway. So okay.
But I knew of you before that.
Oh,
I
you did. Okay.
I learned of you from Choctaw,
I
Choctaw
hope it
Nation.
wasn't from the post office.
Yep. So next up we have Tom Freund. You are up. I'm skipping Jeffrey, your second question. I think you already asked it. So Tom, if you're here.
Yeah, one of the items in your formula for creating electricity, generating hydrogen for electricity, is water. Now, sometimes we may take it for granted, but there are a lot of places in the world that are water challenged. Question basically, have you looked at the overall impact of water consumption as you grow in the future? Your model of how you're going to use your system in the airport is exactly what I pictured when you described it. But I think basically, again, there are airports located throughout the world in areas which are water challenged, and the issue becomes how you're going to be able to manage water in that situation.
A great question, Tom. And water is major here also in the Central Valley, something I talk about a lot. What the benefit of actually using ethanol also is the solution to that question. So in ethanol production, and when it's put on rail and shipped, they're actually removing water from the process. And so we're able and can have a specific cocktail to talk and continue the drinking conversation, or the right proportions of water and ethanol are there and would be able to be delivered directly to our location. And that would be setting up that infrastructure and growing it instead of having it removed. It simplifies for the producer of the ethanol, and frankly, even for us. So it's kind of a win-win. And hopefully that answers the question.
I'm gonna Mike has not tipped his cap, so I'm gonna do it for him. So water is a very big issue where we are in Central California. The good news about our process, real quickly, is we work on about 500 gallons a day. We're in a world out here where we talk in terms of acre feet, so 800 times that is an acre foot, roughly speaking. So we have a very low water consumption. So whether we bring it in or are able to source it locally, it's an insignificant amount in the scheme of things per ton of hydrogen produced. But where I said I was going to tip Michael's hat is, in addition to working very hard in our business ventures, Michael has, as of some time ago, and I don't want to turn this into a big political conversation, but Michael threw his hat into the ring and has been working very hard. And he is running for Congress in our local district here. He's running against a gentleman who's not a bad guy, but probably can't spell hydrogen. So we find it very important to to potentially have somebody who's a real somewhat of a pioneer and an evangelizer of our hydrogen space, moving into positions of power. But water has long been a big focus of Michael's work. And so we have been very conscious about using water and, more importantly, stewarding it in our efforts.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, next we have Danny Mako. Danny, are you there? Good to see you.
You too. Michael, great to meet you in Vegas, and great, very interesting presentation. I'm just curious, when at scale, if leakage and transferring from one location to another, are there any greenhouse implications of gaseous ethanol, or is it inert with respect to any greenhouse effects? Getting out in the atmosphere?
Ethanol. I'm sure somebody could find something for vapored ethanol. It's not something that we would, any kind of leakage or spillage would be extraordinarily insignificant because it has monetary value to us. On the safety protocol, a joke we like to tell is a lot of things in this space. If you spill them, you get public emergency in the energy space. If you spill ethanol, everybody runs for the grocery store to get oranges and excuse me, limes and orange juice so we can have a block party.
Good answer.
Danny, that is a good question. But ethanol, well, actually, we talked about, and I brought up ethanol and methanol. It's the same as if it is transported to and from our petrol or gas stations. It is toxic, it is flammable, but you can ingest it where methanol is poisonous to be ingested. So ideally, we're not spilling anything. We're not letting anyone consume our ethanol. But that's what I like really about the simplicity of the molecule as well as hydrogen it's one of the safest things available currently that we already know and regulations already in place to deal with.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Then it looks like there was a conversation about how I was pronouncing Scene's name. His name is pronounced Scene. It's spelled Sean. It took me meeting him probably 2 or 3 times before I got that right. And the way I remembered it is every time that I saw him again, I would say in my Texas accent, I seen you before. Anyway, somebody deleted it, but his name is Scene. It is tempting to call him Sean. Next up, we have Michael Kramer. Kramer, good to see you. It's been a while.
Oops, sorry, finally hit the right button. Hi, Danielle, how you doing? How's the grandkid, by the way?
Great kids. My daughter also had twins. We went to the Space Center yesterday, and my grandson is now saying, look, look, and pointing at everything. Thank you for asking.
All right. Hey, but back to hydrogen. What I'm trying to figure out is what is the nozzle price for either 700 bar or cold liquid? And when I say nozzle price, you know, at airport kind of rates. And then also, what, if I can ask, what's the kilowatt hour cost of electricity you're assuming to get that cost?
Mm-hmm. So we look at this in a lot of different numbers, both with credits and without. Obviously, the credits are not in yet. So let's talk about without. So ethanol obviously is a fluctuating commodity with a fluctuating commodity price. At current prices, we're down in the sub $4 range, maybe even $3.50 on our hydrogen. Probably less where Scene is. Whatever our transportation of the ethanol is really that factor there.
Kind of an echo happening. I don't know what's going on. Okay, can you continue answering, Michael?
Yeah.
Now we have.
So that's where we are. So without credits, we're looking at those kind of numbers. The electricity is a little more of a challenge. As I said, we like to look at electricity for large use. We're looking in the 25 cent, so $250 a megawatt kind of neighborhood. I recognize that's not cheap, but out here in California, large projects can't get power. Actually, how I grabbed a hold of Michael and started this adventure. My family's in a business where we needed to access a large amount of electrical power, and we were told by the power company that we couldn't have it for at least 2 years. That was more than 2 years ago. We still can't get it. So I went out on an adventure to try to find other sources of electricity. And that's how we ended up in this space. So these are problems that are being had by, for instance, the Port of Los Angeles. In one large project, they want to they are building a large dual berth cruise ship terminal offshore from Terminal Island. And the second berth is going to require at least 12 megawatts of power. And they were told by the port of they were told by the power company, which is the municipality, LADWP, that they could not have that power for at least 8 years, to which the gentleman in charge told me that wasn't the worst part. And I said, well, what's worse than that? And he said, I don't even believe them that it'll be only 8 years. So these are the opportunities that we see. There are places where power is difficult to come by, and where it's going to be taxed for carbon footprint in the present or near future.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think last but definitely not least, Peter Connors. Peter, good to see you.
Hey, great to see everybody here today. I've really enjoyed this presentation. It's going to be one of these that I'm going to have to listen to again and again on the YouTube presentation. And I mean, there's just so many things I wanted to ask, but I did wanted to point out that people forget that there is a really robust market for CO2. Pardon me. And the price really depends on how far it is, the cost of transportation of the CO2 to the, from the production facility to the actual user. And I've just heard some crazy numbers about, the price per ton, but, it's just, it shouldn't be forgotten. That's just my basic comments.
Yeah, Mike, that's you.
No, absolutely. All of those things shouldn't be forgotten. And that's the great thing I like about having and building our network, is the location of production is going to be closer to a lot of the places that we're going to be having offtake. And all those things need to be really focused on, specifically the transportation. Since Michael did bring up, I am the candidate for Congress in the upcoming election, some 53 days away, not that I'm counting, but for transportation of how we move people in the air, commodities across the roads, and even our products, the advancements that we're seeing while maintaining really the regulations here in California that the state has placed on future mobility, especially in trucking. The only way that I see a lot of these existing laws and goals to be able to be met is through hydrogen and hydrogen trucking, without losing the weight and the capacity that would happen if we're carrying large batteries. In that, I don't like to bring up politics in business. I never ever did that before. I like just to do business with good people.
Well, and I should just add that as a 501c3, we can't endorse any politician. So the less we talk about that, the better.
Exactly. And that's the reason why I don't want to get into it. And that's why all of these topics that I'm talking about are just based on energy future and supporting that. And I'm able to do that just in my business also. So I want to say thank you for the opportunity to present here and being part of the solution of facilitating these conversations, so we can all come together and bring this hydrogen future now.
Thank you so much, Michael Maher and Michael Lewison. Thank you for your participation at Flying High in Las Vegas. It's a fantastic presentation. I love Tipsy. I love the visuals. It really helps. I mean, for people that have maybe not been out here talking to the public, public acceptance is huge. Scene and I did some stuff in Hondo, and just mentioning hydrogen to the community is like, what? So alcohol is a way that people can wrap their mind around something that they've never worked with before. So I love it from that standpoint. Most of us feel, safe and comfortable around alcohol. So yeah, I think it was just a fantastic presentation. Ron, I'm sorry. Okay, we have 2 minutes. I guess I missed you, Ron. Sorry for skipping you. Go ahead and ask your question. He's just reminded me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. I may have missed it earlier, Michael, but once you have the ethanol on site at the airport, how does it get converted to the hydrogen? Not chemically, functionally, so they can be put into the aircraft? What has to be there to do that?
Yeah, so you're going to have the ethanol will be stored in a tank. It'll run through our unit, and then hydrogen will be produced at the other side. If we're going to do, and it comes out at a pressure that we can run it through a fuel cell, or we'll then run it through a compressor to have it compressed. And it really depends on what future. I mean, Zero Avia, I mean, we know what they're doing. Some other companies are doing. If they're going to be using cryogenic liquid hydrogen, then there will have to be the infrastructure for taking it, compressing it to that level.
And all of this be electrically driven?
A lot of it is currently and is electrically driven.
Okay, we have an airport here in Southern California, and we're in the highest electric rate in the world, and the airport is landlocked. So I'm trying to figure out how in the world we can achieve this without the cost of the hydrogen costing, 5 times what it should, because we have to use the electricity to create it.
Well, we got the perfect solution, and I've probably flown into your airport. I've flown in most of the airports in California. So
CRQ.
Okay. I put my LinkedIn on there. Feel free to do that, or go to our website, any of it. My email is also just my name, Michael.
Okay. I'm on the airport board, and that's why I'm trying to understand how we can accomplish we have a need, interestingly enough. And
Jeff, I'll also follow up with you. Yeah. Wait, is this Ron? This is Ron talking. Sorry, I'm looking at Jeff because Jeff also just put a comment. But Ron, I will follow up with you. We're at the end of our time.
Okay.
But again, huge
Just
thanks.
real quickly, Danielle,
Yes.
Michael's email is m@TO Viridi.
Okay.
So
just
Okay,
the letter
not
M.
Michael.
Sorry, I do have Michael at Michael Maher. I'm so
Okay.
used to saying that.
Great. m@TO Viridi. Thank you so much to Michael Maher and Michael Lewison, and to all of you for attending and the amazing questions. We will follow up with the ones we said we'd follow up with. We'll post this on our YouTube. And everybody have a wonderful rest of their day or night, and have a good week. Bye.
Bye.